Playing piano at church is different from playing piano in other contexts, and when I was first getting started, I wish I had known how to become a more flexible musician instead of feeling shocked every time things changed. In most church environments, every week you'll find some new things, new songs, familiar songs in new keys, new set lists of songs, new transitions between songs, new groups of musicians, sometimes new worship leaders, new underscoring requests. You won't always be asked in advance to play during certain parts of the service, like prayer, reading, scripture, ministry time, baby dedication, communion, but you will be expected to play during them. Today I'd like to share with you some good tips for getting started and how to grow into a more flexible keys player who can adapt with ease no matter what happens when you get there on Sunday. Don't be afraid to ask questions and make notes on your chord charts or on an iPad. It's great to ask questions about song flow and transitions if you don't discuss that in the middle of your rehearsal. It's also great to ask your worship leader if they plan to speak or pray during any extended or short time during any of the songs or in between songs or at the beginning of the service. Sometimes they do have that in mind and they're able to share that with you if you ask. It's great to ask questions before rehearsal if you have them. If as you're going through the songs you start to have questions about the arrangement or what might be expected of you, it's easy to just ask your worship leader or another member of the team what you could expect. It's also great to have conversations one-on-one with your worship leader and see what they'd like to see from you. It's possible that the team has some typical things that they do. For example, you could ask, how do we typically vamp? Or how do we typically cover transitions? Some worship leaders might always want you to vamp playing the 1 and the 4 in your key, like from C to F in the key of C, and others will give you more freedom to do it how you would like. Asking for some general rules and knowledge about how this worship team works can really help. It's great to ask your worship leader for what you need from them to be successful. So this might be chord charts, or it might be resources to a specific arrangement on YouTube or a Spotify playlist, and feel free to ask them for that. It's great to also get on the same page about the musical growth that you want to have, as well as the growth of your whole worship team. Developing flexibility is so important, and flexibility is actually the game, and the more you can lean into it, the better. Your worship leader can and will at some point make changes at practice or during your service. It's so important that you have preparedness and also willingness to change on the fly. Have the courage to show up and be all in when you can't control the outcome and you don't know how it will turn out, but you go anyway. Choose the great adventure of being brave and afraid at the exact same time. If you're playing and someone drops out, unless you've been clearly told to stop, keep playing. Don't just stop and freeze. Keep playing what you were just playing in your song, or start to transition to a new song if needed. There are times where you'll be asked to play a song in a different key than you had originally planned. Maybe the singer wants to sing it a step lower or a step higher, or just make an adjustment. The best way to do this is to be able to play in all 12 keys so that you can adjust really easily on the fly. If you aren't comfortable in playing all the keys, there are a couple different ways you can do this. A lot of keyboards do have a transpose button on them already, so you can adjust up or down by half steps if you need to, and then you can still play in the key that you practiced. We also have a feature in the Sunday Keys app called Easy Transpose, where you can quickly adjust where you want to play and what you want to hear. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and play in the key of C. I'm just going to play the 1 chord and then the 4 chord, and then I'm going to show you how I can move into a different key. Now you'll see how I can move it to a new key, so I'm still playing the same notes in the key of C, but now you're going to hear them in the key of F, so I don't have to relearn that line now in F. It's great to consider the skill sets of the other musicians that you're playing with and really listen to how they play the songs. For example, does the acoustic guitarist always chord in a similar way, or what is their playing style? Does your electric guitar player play more leads, or are they primarily playing rhythm? These are all things that can impact how you play as well. There are also different types of worship leaders. So some will have an exact roadmap for exactly how the songs are going to go and how the set list is going to be. For others, it's a bit more spontaneous. It's really great to bring grace into the situation because there's just all different types of worship leaders. And there's also a scale of organization styles. Some are very organized and will have chord charts for you, and you'll know exactly what's happening. Some worship leaders are more creative than organized. With some, you might show up at practice and get songs then without advance notice, or there could be changes that happen at practice, or things might be unclear. With some, you'll have lots of advance notice and lots of resources. If you don't have the music in advance and you need it, ask for it. A conversation with your worship leader can go a long way. Some leaders have hand signs they'll use to communicate with. One thing I love that we do at our church is we have iPads to display all the chord charts, and my worship leader actually has a Bluetooth pedal that links all the iPads together. When he's ready to start transitioning to the next song, he'll move the chart to the next song, But if he doesn't, I know he wants to stay there, so he's talking or praying, and I'll stay on the chord progression of the song we're on, or the spot we were at before he began to talk. And I'll continue because I know he wants to come back in there in that spot and not move on to the next thing yet. Now, if he does move it to the next chart, I know that we'll be going to that soon. And depending on how the next song is planned to start, this will help determine what I do next. And this really varies depending on the set list and the team and the flow of the songs. It's also really nice because there are times he can switch to the next chart, I can adjust to a new sound, I can begin an intro, and I don't have to move the chart in addition to playing the intro and changing the sounds. It's also so nice to eliminate some guesswork and be on the same page with your worship leader about staying in a song or moving to the next song. It's also so important to be comfortable and confident enough to look at the worship leader and the others in your band and not be glued to the page. This is great because you're able to pick up on visual cues about when your band is going to build a song up higher or when they're going to pull back. When working with a new worship leader, it's also great to ask questions. Say something like, "Hey, I'm looking forward to working with you. Are you hoping to get as close to the recording as we can with these songs, or do you like a little variance?" This tells you how strict to arrangement they'll be versus flowing through it, and how much to prepare specific lead lines or sounds, or how to just approach it generally, knowing things might change. If you are considering joining a new team, you might ask if you can watch a practice, and you can see how everyone interacts, and also how the worship leader leads, to see if it's a good fit for you. It's also important that you understand the worship leader's goal for the whole group and be on the same page to move towards that with them. It's really important to listen to the rest of your band actively. Come prepared with ideas, but also with flexibility to make changes. Consider how to balance what you're doing with what musicians are doing on guitar, bass, and drums. If you're unsure about chord changes or rhythm, it's great to follow along with another strong instrumentalist and watch their hands for what they're doing, and that can help instruct what you can do. Gain others' trust and respect in your band. Your confidence and your preparation will allow them to trust you and will really help to foster a positive working relationship together. Some churches use tracks, so it's really great to have a conversation with your worship leader about what they're looking to hear from you in the keys role. It's important to let your worship leader know what parts you plan to play so that they can adjust the tracks accordingly. If you'd like to use your own gear at church, make sure your worship leader knows what you might need in order to set everything up. Get familiar with the keyboard that you have at your church so you'll really be able to know how it works and how to control it. This might mean that you need to show up at rehearsal a little bit early or stay a little bit late to make sure that you're really working through the songs and you know how you'd like to play them. You might also consider developing your own keyboard rig at home so that you're able to practice at home instead and then just show up at church ready to play. Well, that's about it for today, but I just want to encourage you to keep playing and creating and trying new things on the piano.